Hello, my name is Justin, and this is Alberto from Innovative Realty. Today we're going to explore and attempt to answer the age-old question of whether you should self-manage your investment property or hire a property management company to do so. First, we'll explore some brief pros and cons of each and provide a bit of background.
At the end, we'll also mention the tenant's perspective, which is very important, and we'll mention some commonly heard phrases which we usually hear when we talk to new owners.
Sure. So to get started, let's talk about some pros of hiring a property management company. Primarily, you're going to walk in to an existing operation, an existing infrastructure, and be able to plug into experience and the expertise that they've had and gained over the years. Everything from specific rental market knowledge to rent collection, background screening and application procedures, very specific knowledge of landlord-tenant law and all the legal aspects, as well as, and most importantly, the day-to-day operational considerations.
Correct. On the other hand, there's some property management cons. The first one is the cost. By not using a property manager, you definitely eliminate an expense, which can be costly in some cases. The next one will be lack of control and lack of relationship with tenants, which we don't necessarily agree with. We prefer keeping a business relationship with the tenants rather than a personal relationship, but that's something for another video. The next one is risk of hiring a property manager who will disappoint and risk of fraud. There are some businesses in the industry, like every other industry, which are not very ethical, and if you're not careful when choosing a property manager, you can get yourself in a lot of trouble. Let's move on to the self-management pros.
Sure. So pros of self-management. You've got the perceived sense of greater control, a closer relationship with tenants. You're able to gain the experience firsthand as opposed to outsourcing it through a management company. And also, as Alberto said earlier, the cost savings if you're handling yourself.
On the other hand, the cons are the time that you're required to input into managing your properties, the stress and the frustration. You have some bad experiences, that's inevitable. You will also have to deal with midnight calls, and that's just something that you should definitely account for if you're planning to self-manage yourself. Another one is the lack of experience of a potential self-managing owner can cause problems and result in liability issues. The next one will be that something that Justin mentioned earlier. When you're self-managing, you don't have the expertise, you don't know how to rent the property correctly, price it correctly, maintain it correctly, and you pretty much have to reinvent the wheel and create a new business in order to...
From scratch.
Yeah, from scratch in order to manage your properties.
Yeah, and perhaps most importantly, we haven't discussed this yet, but what does the resident think of all of this? Would they rather work with a private owner or would they rather work with a management company? And it can vary. Mostly what the tenant is concerned about is a few things. For the most part, they're concerned with how easy is one or the other to work with. Is it easy to view the property? Is it easy to apply? Can I get in touch with you quickly throughout the term of the lease if there's an issue or a question? How quickly are you able to communicate back? Just generally, how easy are you to work with? Another one is, by having all of those systems set up and in place and making life as convenient and easy for the resident as possible, you're going to increase your income through reduced vacancy and subsequent lease renewals.
And moving on to the fun part now, we'll hear some fun phrases that we hear on day-to-day basis pretty much, and we'll do a little bit of a role play where I'll be the self-managing owner and Justin will be the property manager. Okay, so the first one. You guys only work one day a year and you get paid monthly. How would you defend that, Justin?
I would love it if that were the case, but that is unfortunately entirely not true. It's not just me, it's a whole team of people that it takes to service these properties and this portfolio properly day to day. If it were the case where I could only work 1 day a year, then you wouldn't see all this gray hair that I've got. But it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort. There's a million different things that are coming up, everything from owner requests and HOA requests and insurance requests, taxes,
and so on.
Maintenance. There's just any number of things that are coming through the office daily, all of which need to be handled timely and efficiently. So unfortunately, that is just not true.
Yeah, I definitely agree with this one. Okay, the next one will be, if you want something done, you have to do it yourself.
Yes, my father says this quite often. And while that sometimes may be the case, life is too short to spend all of your time doing that. And this will never be more apparent than at scale. So you may be able to handle all of these things with 1 or 2 properties, but certainly 3 or more. It's going to get a bit difficult, especially without those sort of business systems and such in place to handle that. And very shortly thereafter, you'll start seeing things slip through the cracks.
Yep, that's definitely true. Now, if you want to move on to the next one.
And actually, if I might just interject, a good example of that would be a doctor. I mean, if that were the case, then why don't you perform your own surgeries on yourself? So it's just, I know it's sort of tongue-in-cheek, but it's true.
I use that with new owners. If you want something done, do it yourself. Why don't you say that to the doctor? Okay, the next one will be some phrases that property managers usually use when talking to self-managing owners.
Yes, so very often when I'm meeting with an owner, especially one who aspires to have a good-sized portfolio, is I will often counsel them that in order to achieve that scale, you're going to have to partner with a good property management company.
Yep, that's definitely right. And if you're a self-managing investor, you may be you may be able to handle 1, 2, 3, 4 properties. Once it gets above 4 or 5 properties, it really gets hard, and it's becoming from a part-time job to a full-time job. And you really need to consider that. On top of that, you also need to know, as an investor, after reading all of the investment books and educating yourself in order to make good decisions, that you need to create that good relationship with property manager where you can trust them, you can try them out with 1 or 2 properties, and then at one point after 3 or 4 properties, when they build their track record, you can really let go, stop micromanaging, and concentrate on what's really important, which is bringing the next deal, funding the next deal, and just increasing your portfolio.
You basically want the property management. You want the property management company to be just a part of the team, just like your attorney or CPA or tax consultant.
That's right. Let's move on to the next one, which I actually want you to handle. It's a good property manager pays for himself.
Yes.
That's what usually property management companies say to self-managing owners. How would you defend that?
Yes, and I would agree. And what happens is you've got a couple variables that are at play. So you've mainly got the income and the expense that are associated with the property. And what I often find is coming in as a management company and helping a self-management owner, we're able to increase that income while at the same time decreasing those expenses. And it's in that space that we pay for ourselves.
That's great. Well, I think this was a very interesting video where we provided a lot of content. Thank you guys for joining us. Please make sure to keep an eye on us. We'll be producing a lot of educational content which will help you educate yourself and improve your investment. And if you do decide to self-manage, please feel free to reach out to us. We work with a lot of owners around town who are self-managed owners, and we provide them with a lot of counsel and information, especially if they run into a situation they're not quite sure how to handle. Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, guys, and till next time.
Thank you.